I hope you got your popcorn and your drink, because it's time that we take a trip into the Meeple Gallery. This is where we get to read all your lovely comments, and we got a whole bunch because we haven't read anything since Gen Con.
Yeah, you always have popcorn and drinks for viewer comment sections, right?
Of course.
That's just a natural snack.
That's where you get to see the real ugly stuff come up. It's the best.
The real ugly stuff. So you mentioned Gen Con.
Oh, I did.
So I'll use it as a segue.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to touch on too much because there was so much going on at Gen Con, but there were a couple really big issues. Probably the biggest thing that everybody was buzzing about was Keyforge. And we talked a bunch about the different aspects of this new, unique card game from Fantasy Flight and Richard Garfield, where every deck is totally unique. If you don't know about it, go watch your previous videos. And there was a lot of different opinions. A lot of people for it and a lot of people against it. And I'm just going to run through a few of them. For example, M. Thomas said, this might not be the game for the hardcore LCG player, or CCG, I guess you could also say, but it will be a lot more inviting for the new-to-card games player, which there are a lot more of. I know a bunch of people that want to play Magic the Gathering, but don't want to put a deck together. They just want to play. This is that game for that type of person. That's something I think we were talking about where a lot of our criticisms of it are probably valid, but maybe they're just not targeting the people who those would apply to, right? The people who want the tournament play, the more competitive aspect where they can deck build for hours on end and hone that perfect deck. So interesting point. Mr. Wizzykin, everybody's comparing this game to Magic because of course. Says, my favorite time playing Magic the Gathering was when I was new to it. And you went out and bought a starter deck, and you got what you got, and you played it. Then you'd buy some boosters here and there and trade cards. This was back in 94, 95. Our decks kind of sucked, but they were our decks, and it was fun to just play them. We'd trade cards here and there and just play. There was none of this making crazy decks and dropping hundreds on it. I really like this idea, and I'm curious how it's going to work. The idea that the deck you get is something I like. So I'm mostly curious to see how the decks are generated and balanced so that they're fun to play and can put up a fight against any other deck. When you start, did you have fond memories of first playing Magic?
I remember playing it horribly wrong, which made some things really overpowered. And I completely understand where he's coming from, but the problem is, and one of my favorite decks was bad, but I love it. But the deck was, I constructed it from cards that had a lot of dragons, because I like dragons.
You sure do.
And Keyforge, though, you can't be like, oh, I love this, so I'm going to buy that deck. You don't know what you're going to get. And that goes back to my problem with, like, if you like aggro or control, you're not really guaranteed that.
Right, but you could be like, I'm going to keep buying decks until I get one that I do like, or I'm going to trade with my friend who did get a deck that I like, right?
That is possible. I never thought of trading whole decks until now.
That's what you're going to do.
So maybe you could do that.
All right, well, we can come back to this, but Tang Lang Fa said, as much as I like Magic and Warhammer and X-Wing, etc., a lot, if not most of those strats are about list creation. I welcome a game where the skill is playing the game with what you have. I like that you can buy a random deck, enter a tournament, and do okay, but not as well as someone that bought a deck 6 months ago and only plays that one deck and knows its tricks. But both are unique and random. I especially love that it's not pay to win. You don't need to buy a new deck unless you get tired of your old one. That remains to be seen. Again, going back to the other guy's point about how well balanced these decks will be. You might argue that technically it's pay to win if you keep paying until you get a deck.
No, and it could be like, oh, if you don't get Martians, because that's the one.
But technically, every game with multiple aspects like this is pay to win. Like you have to pay.
No, I understand it because he strictly means it's one of the things I hate about Magic, or any of the trading card games. Because I even read an article about a guy who wanted to play Pokemon, and he has an issue with that.
Okay.
He's like, oh, great, I want to play deck. And you really do want to play, maybe you don't need to be the most competitive, but you want to be competitive. You'd be like, great, I need that card. Oh, it's $40 a pop, I need 4 copies.
Right, yeah, that's no fun.
That's pay to win.
So here's some people who are had some doubts. Love in Paint Creations said, this is a really interesting concept, but I'm really not sure if it's going to last. Too many people like having control of their decks. So maybe they're just thinking, on a marketing level, people just aren't going to be interested in this concept.
Right, and that's actually, I think, the counterpoint to our first commenter. Like, there is that market of the casual players, but a lot of them don't stick. It's the same reason that happens with video games. You see a lot, like there's that initial burst sale, but when it comes to the DLC or the next expansion, they've all left.
That's true.
So it's the challenge of balancing for both groups, obviously, and that's the problem with Magic. Obviously, where they're trying very hard. That's why you see the commander sets when they're releasing the decks have a lot of good cards. I think Magic needs to up their game and reprint a lot of the strong cards so people can get them, but then that would maybe be admitting the second market exists, and they don't want to do that. But this is a good jumping point for that. I'm just wondering, will it have the staying power? This is Fantasy Flight. They're very good at sticking around.
Yeah, well, one more for Keyforge. Andy Gott said, since it's a limited card pool, I'm sure people will figure out the good combo cards by buying a bunch of decks. Then you just have to buy on the secondary market the deck that has the best combos. So instead of individual cards, people just buy the deck. So yes, the better decks will still win, and people will be able to buy the better decks. We will see how well their handicapping system works. This is also really interesting because something people have noticed is on Cool Stuff Inc. They have a section for Keyforge that they've set up in advance of the game. But of course, you can't sell singles for this game.
But once again, it didn't occur to me now when you said trade decks. I'm like, that makes sense.
So they're going to open a deck, and you're going to look, and they're going to tell you, here are the 40 cards, or however many it is, in this deck, and you're going to, that's how you're going to, like, it's a very weird concept.
It is definitely weird, especially because it's not like, oh, we're selling, the Great Flames deck, the Forest deck, because they're not named like that. There's only one of that. There's not like 20 copies of it. So you have to be like, does it have that card and that card? It's almost like I'm thinking about Destiny just brought back random rolls on items. So when you're looking at the perks, you're like, oh, that's a good perk, but that's an okay perk and that's a bad one. Is that good enough? Like you start thinking like, does it have just enough of the good cards to push it over?
Yeah. Something else I just remembered is Fantasy Flight also talked about their actual plans for tournament play. I don't know if you saw that.
That I didn't.
They're going to have like different formats. One is where you come in with your own deck that you have, and the other one is where everybody just buys a brand new one and starts playing with it there. But they also had another one where you actually got to, like, you open a bunch of decks and look through their contents, and I think there was like some kind of a bidding format. So you would try to bid on which deck you liked the most, which is even weirder because it means everyone's got to go look through all the cards of these decks to know which ones they like. So you've got to be pretty familiar with the cards and the mechanics to know what's good, what works with your play style. It's a whole new field, a whole new ball game. It's very weird.
Yeah, and that, I think, is whether it's good or bad, it's still agreed that we're seeing something different and at a low price point is the nice thing. I mean, regardless of the fact that we do video reviews and we're going to probably do a video on it anyways, I mean, I've gone through so many card games, I'd probably be interested in just buying a deck and trying it out.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm optimistic.
I mean, whether I'm going to follow through with it, probably not.
I'm not going to, but but it has nothing to do with the game. It's every
right. No.
We played Dice Masters.
Right.
We've been playing the Transformers card game. I'm not going to continue with any of these games. Even Star Wars Destiny. I love Star Wars Destiny, but I just don't have the time and patience to play these games.
But I think Keyforge
Keyforge will differ because
that's why
different.
I think it is different. You don't have to think about the collectible aspect as much.
That's true.
And like I said, a lot of people made some very strong points on both ends, and that I agree with. And because it's new, that's the problem. It's not like you can be like, oh, we've seen this before. We know it's going to crash and burn, or it's going to rise to the top. The buying singles market is now going to be buying deck market. And the question is, will they balance it enough where it's like, because if there is something like one group obviously overshoots the others, I keep using Martian as an example because that's just the one we both used. So that's the one I know. Then any deck that has Martians will increase greatly in price. But if each group is like, yeah, you're going to be good no matter what, except for maybe some weird circumstances when it's a bad deck, then I don't think that's going to be as big of an issue. And that's a good thing in my mind if they do have that balancing. That's the big problem. If it's not balanced and just this tilts completely.
That's really the big thing. That's the big variable that we're just gonna have to wait and see how it works out.
And of those tournament plays, the bidding one sounds interesting because there's never, can't think, like you do drafting, that's not bidding, that's first come, first serve.
Right, and I believe like the thing you're bidding is actual like in-game, like you get like some kind of head start if you pay less or something.
But I mean, obviously the going in, buying a deck there is the obvious, like the seal, that is I think the way to do this game.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Another kind of controversial one, actually, was the Arkham Horror 2nd Edition.
Okay.
Or 3rd Edition.
Yes.
that was at Gen Con. People were kind of split on this one as well. Jonathan Rulak. There's a line through this O. I don't know how you're supposed to say that.
Don't ever look at me to pronounce something. You know that.
He asked, "Hi guys, can you tell a bit about how consistent the narrative seemed compared to especially 2nd edition of Arkham and Eldritch, which I often found to be too mechanical and with a too random story, whereas the LCG has an amazing story. We only played the demo, but what do you think compared to the LCG and the 2nd edition, the story of this one?"
This LCG will still rule on the story. I mean, each pack is so finely tuned with that. It's one of the reasons why I love it, and that's why the last set, the Dunwich set, I wanted to play with you because I'm like, there's a museum and train that's like right up your alley.
I love those.
It's not some random places. Eldritch Horror did a little bit better with its expansions, and the way that worked is if you're going to Antarctica, it has to involve like Antarctica, which I did think was very nice because playing the original, well, not original, but 2nd edition Arkham Horror, where I did play with every board. It just felt like a chaos, not in the cool like chaos bringer stuff.
Well, and it sounds like the new one is going further with its more scenario based, more.
It does feel that way. Like we only got to play the way they do a lot of these things fight, especially the big long ones. Is you come in like halfway in the game. You do like 2 rounds, and someone else hits where you left off.
Right.
But from what we can tell, the way the game works is like if I chose to fight Cthulhu, it'll tell you set the board up like this. So it does feel like it could have more of a narrative structure, but we haven't played a full game yet. I did pre-order it, so we will be able to get it as soon as it arrives. We'll let everyone know.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, if you're looking for a story, stick with the LCG. That one's going to have the nice, really the big good story hooks, especially with a lot of them rewarding you between chapters, whether if you did something, you get to add this card deck, or if you didn't, you get this weakness or something.
Yeah,
so.
It's still going to have that thing where you're at a place and you just draw a random card, and this thing happens to you that's not really connected to the overall story, but I do think it's going to go a little further in that direction than the last edition did. I didn't take any specific other comments from the Arkham Horror 2nd edition or 3rd edition comments, but just in general, I wanted to address how a lot of some people did not like the modular board because they didn't like the idea that the town of Arkham isn't fixed. They didn't think that made sense. And then there were a bunch of people, we praised the new one for being simpler, and a bunch of people said the part of what they love about the 2nd edition of Arkham Horror is that it's so complex and sprawling and fiddly. Whereas other people, of course, were like, I don't like that. This is much more of an improvement. So it's just interesting to see. It really seemed more split than I thought it would be. A lot of people really were saying, I'm not going to touch this. I'm sticking with 2nd edition. I don't know. I didn't see that coming.
I can understand, but one of the jokes I don't know how many times I've made it on this show, but even beyond it, it's just like, it's almost like just playing a video game, except I'm taking care of all the background stuff.
Right.
And I enjoyed it.
The word is fiddly.
I don't think I have since, I don't know when, like, you last moved, and ever will be able to have that hit the table.
It's tough.
Like, it's very tough to bring to that table. Eldritch Horror is still tough, and I think that's a lot easier. Yeah. So it's just a matter of, like, I love the game, but it's just going to be, I think this one I'm going to be able to actually have it played more.
Yeah. That's good. That'd be a good thing. All right, let's get some more comments. Beyond Gen Con, we also talked a little bit about the new Dune license that Gale Force 9 got. Mm-hmm. Hoser 40K scolded me for not finishing reading Dune. and
I like he only scolded you.
Yeah, I think he didn't get that you also didn't read, because then he said, Will, you might have to explain the above Dune references to Jonathan. Throwing him under the bus. He didn't read it either. But
I'm a bad person.
He's excited. We're gonna do it for a book club. Then we got a few people to wrap up talking about that big old Horizon Zero Dawn Kickstarter.
All right, so how many people did I piss off?
Nobody. Everybody.
Really?
Nobody liked this. Everybody's on our side. So the Zilla says, I think Horizon Zero Dawn's price point is more driven by the recent trend toward Gloomhaven-style big games. Gloomhaven has proven that people will pay over $150 for a very big box, so it's not surprising that other companies will follow. I guess that's true. Gloomhaven has really set that model, although, we've seen like CMON has miniatures games that go for $90, $100. It's not the same, it's quite in the same price league as this. So do you think that is? I guess that is what they've done. If the content is there to back it up.
I do think it's a bunch of little things. I think one, they want, both out of greed and also I think actually, knowing that this will attract, as they said, a lot of people who aren't gamers. They want to be like, just put one pledge level. Just one price. Don't make this some weird complicated thing.
Right. Yeah, there was like a section on the Kickstarter that was like, if you've never seen a Kickstarter before.
Yeah, like that was a little much, but I do think because Horizon was a very big selling game. So I think there was some of that there, but it was also, as you said, like, so people have paid $100, they'll pay for this.
Yeah, so that's interesting. The Ernie Fours said, I'm with you on Horizon Zero Dawn. Steamforge should have got their stuff together before releasing the game on Kickstarter. When they hit their goal, they still didn't have the gameplay video or stretch goals posted. If I didn't believe Steamforge was a company, I would have called out that this is a scam. It feels like they didn't finish their homework before turning it into Kickstarter. Watching the gameplay video makes my head hurt because it's obvious that only one person knows how to play. I still didn't get how the game is played because that video is hard to follow. I did watch it. Yeah, so was it hard for you to follow?
I think I got the general gist of it for most of it. It was definitely the one guy or the other two. But I will say the two people who were at the table with them, I would not mind watching those guys play other games. They were into it. It wasn't nearly just, yeah, the other guy's like, I'm going to wreck you and stuff. So they were good. They at least got good people at the table. But yeah, as I think they said, they should have done the homework. That video should have been up right at the start. I think they should have played through them once so they actually knew how the game worked and then followed through. But I understand they wanted to, maybe so they teach you as well, but if you can still do that with the other people knowing it.
Yeah, no, there's just no excuse for a company that big and a property that popular. There's just no excuse. Like, you should have it together. That's, I think, end of story.
And like I said, as of that recording, I have not checked back since, because I probably will when the 48-hour mark hits. Mm-hmm. But like I said, the named characters, the characters actually from the game, I don't know what they do.
Neither do they. That's all the comments I want to talk about, but we did just release our Predator Legendary Encounters review in the wake of the new Predator movie, and I thought, we might as well take advantage of this opportunity. I don't want to give brief thoughts since we did see the Predator movie, and whether, I don't know if you think it would maybe fit into the Encounters deck building world.
Yeah, first off, I would like to say that if you didn't know, Jonathan should have been a movie reviewer. He deserves that. And probably we should do more just general movie reviews on here.
Yeah, we'll do some more of those.
But yeah, I also got the Alien expansion since that recording. Mm-hmm, and I actually opened it, looked through, and saw them stuff. And that came with made up. They're not, as far as I know, actual from any of the Alien movies and stuff. It did come with some characters, new characters from the movies. Pretty much everyone who died really early is now in there.
Okay,
Even the original guy who had the original chest burster, his big card is that.
Nice.
So I've seen how that works, and in this mode, I definitely could see the main crew totally being the characters you play as, because I would love to play with some of them. They have some very unique things. If you watch that movie, a lot of it was just zingers that would totally be the name of cards.
You're talking about the new Predator,
movie,
right?
Yeah,
okay.
They had so many lines in there that would be the name of different cards and stuff. The Predators would definitely be really interesting, especially since, for example, you played the first Alien Legendary, and the first Predator played the same way too. With the big thing appears at the end. In this movie, that wouldn't be the case. You'd see multiple throughout, which would definitely be very interesting.
Yeah, I do think there's some definitely potential for some unique objectives that you could try to complete in it. It was like you alluded to with the zingers. It feels like a big dumb '80s movie. Very much is that. I think we both still had fun with it, even though we both agreed there were some aspects of it that were really stupid.
Yeah, I think there were some things that were like you just sort of like. But at the same time, I think maybe it's just because I'm just a big fan of Predator and Alien in general. And coming from Covenant, to me, didn't felt like my knowledge was ruined in any way. It still felt like the fun '80s movie, and the references weren't. There were a lot, but I don't think it was as bad as some other movies. I think, like Ghostbusters, I think is the one that we really hated all the callbacks as much.
Yeah, it wasn't that egregious. No, It wasn't that bad. So yeah, if you want to see predators and gore and stupid one-liners, that's what you're gonna get with the Predator. All right, so those are comments. That's for our Meeple Gallery. If you want to be on a future Meeple Gallery, it's easy. Just leave a comment right here, right now, and we'll discuss it in the near future. And we've kind of been going through a bunch of stuff, coming back from Gen Con, recovering, dealing with things in our own lives, but we're getting back in the swing. We've been putting up a bunch of reviews and previews lately, and hopefully we're gonna get soon back to more stuff like the extra fun stuff, like the book clubs and stuff like that. So let us know if there's anything like that you want to see from us.
And of course, if you want to actually see if your comment comes on screen or your suggestion becomes a video, you should like and subscribe.
Yeah. It's really easy. And also stay tuned for our upcoming new website that hopefully we'll do. Right now we're just a YouTube channel. So hey guys, thanks for checking in. Hope you're all doing well. My name's Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this was a visit to the Meeple Gallery, folks. Make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get more board game content from Roll for Crit.
Do it. Do it now.